Alright, today I'm going to create a vSphere 5.1 vCenter server virtual appliance. There's significant changes, including the way the database works, so how-to guides like this one are going to need to change because it looks quite different. It's also gotten a lot simpler. So I've done only one quick dry run, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of do this seat of my pants and install and configure this. And it really doesn't take too many minutes. So the first step, we got to get the files. So here's the files. I've got them on a local hard drive in a folder, ready to go. And that's the directory I've got them in. All right, next, over on ESXi 5.1. So I've got a host already at 5.1, and now I want to manage it with a 5.1 vCenter. So File, Deploy OVF Template, and paste in that path I already have on my clipboard. Or I can click Browse and browse my way there as well. Okay, so we're pointing to the OVF file. When we open it, we're able to click Next, and you can see it's pre-configured. It tells us the size of the drive. It's going to use 85 gig thick provision, which is interesting. I'm probably going to clone this over to a solid state and do thin. And it's on /11. Okay, click Next. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add the host name to the beginning. Mine's going to be called vCenter, just like my previous one was. Dash, and then I'll leave the rest of the name alone. On the file system, I'll then be able to see my host name and then the name of the virtual machine I've created. It's just my little scheme. Putting it on my fastest drive. It's got enough room available. Thin provision. I only want to use up as much space as it needs to use up. Map the network. So network called network 1, kind of generically. It's mapping that to VM network. That is correct. That's what I want. And I can go ahead and power on after deployment. So it should go ahead and pull those files rather quickly over the network, which you can see it's doing. And actually, we hit Control-Delete and run the new task manager on Windows 8. We've got a really nice speed monitoring ability built in. Let's take a look here. It's going so fast I might miss it. All right. There's the disk, and here's the Ethernet. So yeah, it's pushing that file over real fast. That's impressive. Okay, let's just let her rip. Okay, it says completed successfully. Click Close. Now you have to pay attention and click on it, or you won't see anything. So you got to click on vCenter, click on Console, and now we can watch it power up. Notice at the bottom it says powering up. Now the gist of what we'll need to do is to, since I don't have a DNS, a real domain name server, in my home lab environment, I'm going to go ahead and WinSCP into this virtual machine and edit the host file so that it can see the ESXi host by name rather than IP address. That'll make it easier to deal with. All right, notice what it's saying. It's saying open your browser and point to this. All right. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's try Chrome. I know in the past Chrome has given us issues. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're in. Username root, password VMware, and we're logging in. Okay, this is going well. And it's telling us to open the browser, accept the EULA, and then select the desired configuration and follow the wizard. Okay, we can do that. Now you'll notice a whole different look and feel, but this first screen is really important. I want a static address, so I want to cancel the wizard and then later launch the wizard again right over here. But after I cancel the wizard, I'm going to go to the network address settings and put in the host name. Alright, so cancel. Notice what it says here, a bunch of stats. Let's go to the network tab, address tab, and static. Okay. So my own IP is going to be .51. My ESXi host is .50. I can leave IPv6 alone. I can call it vCenter.local. I believe it always appends .local anyway. We're going to get into the host file. We can tweak that. So now I'm ready to click Save Settings. Naturally, I've just blown away my own connection to this. So I'm going to fix that. Let's get right back to the beginning. And let's see how we do. We have to click Leave this page. Proceed anyway. Whoops. Okay. Setup wizard is what it told us to do next. That's what we'll do. All right. So we've gotten through this. We've relaunched. Now I'm ready to select an option. Configure with default settings. Or set a custom configuration. To keep this video and walkthrough as easy as possible, I'm going to go to Configure with default settings and click Next. Notice it has an embedded database it's going to take care of. We don't have to type anything. Anything else interesting here? No, that's it. So we click Start, and then we just wait. So it's configuring the database, which takes some time. It was DB2. But they're no longer using DB2. You're going to see that on some screens coming up here. Let's see if I can get another window going here. Just leave that recording. So my own article talks about how it went with a new database right there. Everything's explained. Read all about it in this URL. I like to know what's going on, so I'm going to go back to the vCenter client and just take a quick peek at performance and see if we can get an idea of what it's really doing here. Is the CPU busy right now? I don't want you to miss anything, so let's slide that over. Okay. Yeah, CPU is a bit busy, spiking here and there. What kind of resources did it give the VM at the default settings? Well, looks like it gave it 8 gig, which is rather large for a small home lab with only 32 gig of RAM on the machine. So I'm probably going to back off of that. 2 CPUs is recommended though on the previous version. It's probably still true. Nothing looks unusual at all in there. It's not UEFI, it's BIOS, okay. And the hard disks, oops, it's doing something on the right. Thin provisioned and thin provisioned, so I told it thin, good. So it's actually using up far less than that way. How do we know what it's actually using at this moment in time? Just you can browse the data store where the file lives. And there we go. About 13 gig total. So the actual size versus for revision size, excuse me, you'll see right there. Here's all the file names. Okay. So it looks like it's actually auto-starting vCenter server. We don't even need to reboot it anymore. So yeah, looks like they've simplified the installation and configuration considerably. I'm still going to want to check my clock. I'm still going to want to check my host file. And again, I want to be able to SSH, say PuTTY right into this vCenter host and ping my ESX host by name before I even go adding anything. All right, so it looks like it finished. Now it's ready for me to click close. And it's updating a bunch of stuff. There we go. All right, how much memory is this thing using now that it's up and running? Well, let's have a look. Here's our summary screen. And consumed memory is 5, active 3. So yeah, giving it 8 is kind of aggressive. It's just probably too much for a small lab. But remember, we just picked the default easy install. Okay, what else we got here? Let's just look through the buttons. Not much to see. Active Directory, don't need. Notice we can tune it for an inventory size. Mine is small. Handful of 1 or 2 dozen VMs. I am going to want to do this stuff. Okay, network we already talked about. Doesn't look like it held on to my host name. So localhost.localDOM it kind of hung on to. So looks like we're going to have to go and edit the host file to fix that. Let's get the time zone right. Eastern. Interesting. Never mind, not Eastern. Okay, so let's get that to proper time zone. Let's see what that did over in the console, if anything. That doesn't show us the clock. Okay. Naturally, if we check for updates, it's going to be nothing. We'll also see where it's hitting. Yeah, there's nothing there yet at the moment. And password. That's the last tab, and that's the last thing I'm going to change. So it's currently VMware. I'm going to change to something a little better. Enable SSH is on. All right. How do we reboot this thing? Right here. System tab. So we've set the clock. We've done all that. Let's just go ahead and reboot it. And that really ends the initial deployment and configuration video, but it'll be more fun to actually add an ESXi host and show you editing the host file. Just my own little tweaks. Really optional. Okay, so you can see it's obviously rebooting. I'll be curious to see the clock briefly echoed when it comes up. Let me just give you a, whoops. Just get a full view of that. Move the window that's recording. Hardware clock. And it didn't say the day and time. Interesting. All right, that goes by rather quickly. Okay, it's time to get hit Windows Q, get used to this. And then WinSCP, hit enter, and now I've started up WinSCP. So soon we should be able to log into this thing called vCenter. Okay, if we look at my host file, you'll see my Windows machine has been tweaked to have 3 key IPs in there. Okay? So we want to do the same thing with vCenter, basically, this appliance. But we have to wait for the database and the thing to finish booting. So. Notice the database came up and says OK. When you were corrupted before, like if your clock was wrong or some other missteps, DB2 could get corrupted or non-graceful shutdown, and you'd see it not finish with a database initialization message giving you some sort of warnings. But this boot seems like it's going just fine. And I did this boot kind of just because it changed the time zone, which can do interesting things to VMs, and I want to be comfortable that this VM was deployed. Cloning this VM is not terribly important because you can just redeploy from the template. So, all right, we're back and we're up. To convince myself we're really good, let's go ahead and log in there to that VM again, just to make sure everything looks square with the new password. Okay, we're in. It's telling us the database is running. And system time. The time zone stuck, so that's good. Network, it's still got, oh, it changed to the local host. Literally the word localhost. All right, a little odd. So let's just move on. And time to try WinSCP. So I use it by hostname because, again, my Windows machine has a hack so that when I type in vCenter, it's going to get to IP address 51. It's because I don't have a real DNS, which is common in a home, where you don't have proper DNS for local name lookups on a local subnet. Okay, add the key. WinSCP is warning me I've never connected here before. That's expected. Okay, we're in. What's next? Go to the root, go to ESXi, go to hosts. Right-click host and say edit. And now it's time for a little tweaking. We can just steal it right out of Windows. Those are the things I want to add. And let's see if paste actually works here. No problem. I'm going to add a carriage return at the end. I'm just kind of used to doing that. And that's my host file. It's that simple. Close it and say yes. We are done with WinSCP. Putty would be good. So now we putty into vCenter. For the first time, it warns us. And we log in. So, looks like our host file is toast. Yeah, that didn't go too well. Okay, let's try out. Oops, sorry. WinSCP again. Let's see how the host file looks from its perspective. Okay, here's WinSCP. Here's the host file edited at 521, 1 minute ago. Okay, we don't see a problem there. But pinging vCenter failed. So let's think about that. When I did this paste, I want to do a clear text paste, which is what should have been in there. Don't quite know what to say. It didn't hose anything. The first lines are just are there, but the other lines didn't get saved. Okay, 5:23 p.m. Fine. That's better. Okay. That's good. It's pinging itself just fine. Okay, now we're ready to add the ESXi host. Excellent. Oops. So we still don't like the host name it picked for itself, though. And rather than monkeying with the host file, we want to do it here. So let's see if we can get this thing to stick. Okay, if we hit save now. Okay, let's just click on some other tab. It says host name vCenter. So you'd think it'd be happy at this point. Is it? vCenter localhost. So yeah, it tweaked its own host file just now. And we can still ping ESXi. So that's good. I'd say reboot's in order again. I want to be totally convinced we're really done. And that it persists through reboots next normal. So after this reboot, which we know it doesn't take very long, we're probably done and ready to go ahead and log this in, vCenter, vSphere client, into this new vCenter appliance we just created, rather than pointing straight to the ESXi host. So if you've never done that before, that's an important thing to follow. This vSphere client, if you got the free hypervisor, you might be used to pointing straight to the IP address of your ESXi host. Here forward, now that you've built yourself a vSphere appliance running vCenter, you now, here forward, always want to log into vCenter. Can't really think of any reason you wouldn't want to. For most occasions, including right-click and cloning on a VM or changing into a template, all that good stuff. That all comes when you have vCenter in the mix. Wording it differently, if you have ESXi alone, that's one thing, but if you add vCenter appliance to it, you now have a vSphere, personal cloud running. Okay? Okay, now while that's coming up, we can actually go in here, go to ESXi and say Configuration, and go to Virtual Machine Startup and Shutdown. And now that we've created something to actually auto start, let's do that. There we go. So we now have vCenter auto starting with the machine. If Tools is running, does it need to wait around for 2 minutes to go to the next one? No. And then for shutdown, if I lose power or trigger a shutdown, do I really want to delay a long time for vCenter to go down? Not really. I'm going to turn that to 15 seconds. And I want to do a graceful shutdown. I don't want to do a power off, which is mean. So there you go. So now that's set. So if we reboot ESXi itself, vCenter itself should boot just fine. I can go ahead and test that. Let me just suspend some VMs that we don't need in the way. Okay, so how's vCenter doing? Didn't miss a thing. It's still booting. Okay, very soon we should be able to get in here. And there we are. So here forward, let's do HTTPS vCenter:5480. That's what we want to bookmark. So if you want to bookmark something, how about that? And so it doesn't really need the word core login. In fact, I'm actually going to strip that off. Okay, test out my shortcut, works great. We're in. And let's see if we got that host name squared away. Network. Gosh. There it is. Okay, good. It was just a little slow. I guess I should have just waited. So we're good. That means for my Windows machine, Windows 8, it's working fine. We're ready. It's time. Close the vSphere client and launch it again. And this time, log into vCenter for the very first time. Install a certificate so it doesn't display that warning every time. And we're in. We have to create a data center. And the wizard walks us through saying we have to add a host. Okay, remember we set that up so that by name it would work. Gives us a little warning. That's the first time. It finds some virtual machines on there. And now the magic happens. I'm going to skip over licensing and I'm going to skip over lockdown mode. And just click next until I get to the finish line. So here it goes. It's trying to add it now. And at the bottom it's telling us what it's doing. Let's give a little more elbow room so you can see those messages. Nice. Okay, it's done. What does this mean? Well, now when you click on a virtual machine, you can clone them and so forth. By the way, I had a virtual machine already where I did a little bit of testing, and this is an old one. Okay, so that one's just kind of sitting there, and it's old. The new one is the one we're running. And if we look at it, console, again it says 5.1 right up top. If we go into ESXi host, we can proofread and make sure that we are auto-starting the correct one. It has a single dash in there, so that's a good reason to not have confusing names like I did. But yes, I have the correct one enabled to auto-start. And I think it'd be good to go ahead and give that a test. So to end this video, convince you that we're running in a new environment, well, there's ways to do that. You can look at overall performance of everything on ESXi or in the data center, so that's new stuff you couldn't do when you're logged into ESXi host. You can see what these warnings are. Yep, a little low on disk. Okay. Actually, I'll just clear them. And we have to be careful when you thin provision. Don't want to run out of space, particularly where your vCenter appliance is running. That would be bad. Weird things will probably happen to the database, or at least a read-only state will be entered. It'll be toast until you reboot. Okay. What else are you able to do? You're able to take a VM and clone it. The word clone didn't even appear when you right-click on a virtual machine before. Or migrate it, move it to another data store. Extremely handy. Including the new shared nothing feature, where you can move from one machine to another without shared hard drive storage, which used to be a requirement. Okay, so let's go ahead and end with a reboot of ESXi. I've got nothing running here I care about other than vCenter. So when I trigger a reboot of ESXi, watch what happens. I didn't bother going into maintenance mode because I have nothing else going. And there it is. You can see it sent a process to gracefully shut down that appliance. So now we have some comfort that if I make another appliance that watches over my UPS, tells ESXi to reboot, you've also seen now it's going to quiesce or quiet down, or the file system shut down properly this vCenter appliance that we do kind of care about, and any other VMs I care about. I'll just add to the auto start and auto stop list. So there you have it. We're going to lose connection soon, because when you kill vCenter, of course, we're going to lose our console, because that's what we're logged into. So I'll need to speed up this part of the video as we just go through a reboot. Okay, ESX is still responding to ping, but not for much longer. I believe I've got my start order specified properly, which means it should boot right off the USB installation of ESXi 5.1 automatically. Okay, we're in. There you have it. So if we look at the summary of the data center view, let's see how it looks. Okay, and the summary of the host. That's how that looks. And finally, getting started. I was going to look at health or alerts. We're all set. I cleared those alerts. So that's about it. Any new alarms after rebooting? Okay, it's complaining about health status monitoring. Hopefully you found this video helpful on the creation of a vCenter appliance, which once you've done it once and gone through the steps, you could probably do rather quickly, probably about 15 minutes from beginning to end, once you have the files downloaded. Maybe only 10 minutes or so. Thank you for watching, and please, your feedback is always greatly appreciated.